Hello, buddy. All right, let me just get this started here. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. Normally, we would wait a few minutes to give people a chance to come in, but there is something I kind of have to do. Kind of forgot to do yesterday. Um, in my haste to try to keep the show within a certain time frame, I forgot to do the this day in each history segment yesterday. So we're gonna actually start off the show by doing that. We're gonna go back to yesterday to do that, and then I'll talk a little bit about what's on tap for tonight, looking ahead to tonight and all that. So, anyways, going back to yesterday. Um, and again, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So anyways, we're going to start off, as I said, going back to yesterday for a moment to do the This Day in Each History segment before, of course, moving on to today. Let me just see. 1985, 85, yeah. 2010 and 2000. All right. So now that I know what we're talking about here. So, anyways, so going back to yesterday, um, so we're going to take a look back at yesterday's day in history, October 22nd, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back. Um, First off, I'm going to head back 40 years ago yesterday. Like 40 years ago yesterday is 40 years ago yesterday. Um, 40 years ago yesterday. Um, the fifth issue of West Coast Avengers from Marvel Comics went on sale. It sold for 75 cents and was 32 pages. The story was In and Out, written by Stephen Englehart, with penciled being done by Alan Negrom. Joe Sinnott did the inking. Janice Cheong did the lettering, and then of course Petra Skolesi Goldberg did the coloring. So 40 years ago yesterday, the fifth issue of Avengers went on sale yesterday. So that was 40 years ago yesterday. And of course, 1985 was just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. It's also 40 years ago yesterday. Let's pull that up here. 40 years ago yesterday in WWE history, of course, here. Or, well, at the time known as WWF, of course, but 40 years ago yesterday as well. So 40 years ago to yesterday, in one of his final matches and what would be his final TV appearance, Rick McGraw faces Roddy Piper at the WWF Championship Wrestling taping in Poughkeepsie, New York. Now, Rick McGraw back in the was a territorial guy on the independent scenes when the WWE was starting to nationalize. There in 1985, of course, he'd become one of the um, early, enhancement talent stars. Guys who were brought on to help put over the stars of the day. Having some moderate success, of course. he was kind of one of the upper enhancement guys. He'd get talent, he'd get wins on other talents, and but would usually fall short to more established stars. Of course, he did some work as well on the independent scene as well as on the Carolina independent scene. He did some work even for NWA Mid Atlantic for a while there. So, anyways, taping at Poughkeepsie, New York, which aired on tape delay in first run syndication on November 2nd. The match was made following an appearance by McGraw on Piper's Pit on October 1st, aired on October 26th. Now, what you have to remember too, back in the 80s here, when they were recording, they would record a lot of these syndicated shows, weeks and events. At the time, of course, WWE had All-Star Championship Wrestling and or All-Star Wrestling and Championship Wrestling. Like NWA, depending upon the territory, like Mid-Atlantic had Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and worldwide, Georgia had Georgia Championship Wrestling. So they would usually tape these shows weeks in advance, to basically, and they'd usually record a series of shows, where they basically wrestle the same set of, guys would rotate around and wrestle the same, so for one match you might have a Piper versus McGraw, another match you might have McGraw versus Steve Lombardi or somebody like that to battle to, or you might have, then you might have McGraw, let's say, taking on who's another maybe like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat or something like that. So, or some, actually I should have thought of Healy, or Big John Studd. Okay, so anyways, where he gave Piper a hard time, accusing him of using his interview segment to shoot off his mouth and attack his guest, which Piper was known for, while not bothering to step into the ring on TV to back up his talk, before slapping Piper in the face to end the segment. After McGraw briefly takes control early in the match, Piper takes over and dominates thereafter, culminating in a one-sided beatdown with a swinging neck breaker and 2 DDTs. The second of which leads to match being stopped and awarded to Piper after McGraw is ruled unable to continue. As McGraw is subsequently removed from the ring on a stretcher, Piper arrogantly proclaims to the TV camera, "That's why they don't let me wrestle on TV," in reference to the match's outcome. The match aired on TV the day after McGraw's death on November 1st, leading to some fans assuming at the time, when kayfabe was still in effect, that McGraw died of injuries inflicted by Piper during the match, even though, in fact, McGraw wrestled a few more matches in the interim between the match and his death from a heart attack. Piper, a real-life friend of McGraw's off-camera, mourned his passing and subsequently headlined a show in McGraw's hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, to benefit McGraw's family. So this is around. So on yesterday's date, 40 years ago, Rick McGraw would participate in a TV taping that was led to, of course, his final TV appearance before his passing on November 1st. And there was speculation, I think, at the time that drugs were involved with his heart attack. So, anyway, so that happened 40 years ago. So now, moving on to the next piece of niche history from yesterday. So 25 years ago yesterday. 25 years ago yesterday. Pierrot's Ghost Stories premiered on Japanese television on yesterday. So yesterday, 25 years ago yesterday, Studio Pierrot's Ghost Stories premiered on Japanese television. Now, mind you, this is probably one of the few animes that actually had better success when it was dubbed than in its original form. Originally, in its original form, it was not very successful. It gained a cult following after it had been dubbed by ADV Films, because in part it had done so badly in Japan that when ADV wanted to dub it, they were actually pretty much given permission to pretty much, with very few restrictions, to do whatever they wanted with the show in terms of the dubbing. And this was turned into somewhat of a comedic thing because, of course, the cast, ADV cast, many of them out of the Houston area, of course, such names people know as Monica Rial, Chris Patton, Greg Ayres, Hilary Haig. They were all involved in the dubbing of Ghost Stories. It was turned into kind of a comedic gold in which they would use a lot of take a lot of opportunities to take shots at at certain figures in the news as well. Anyway, so 25 years ago yesterday, Studio Pierrot's Ghost Stories premiered on Japanese television. And finally, as soon as I pull this up, so 15 years ago yesterday, cartoonist Alex Anderson, born Alexander Hume Anderson Jr., passed away at the age of 90. Now, I'm sure most of us probably never heard of the name, but we know his work because Alex Anderson was an American cartoonist who co-created such characters as Rocky the Flying Squirrel, Bullwinkle, and Dudley Do-Right, as well as Crusader Rabbit. He was, however, not directly involved with the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. So 15 years ago yesterday, Alex Anderson, the creator of Rocky, Bullwinkle, Dudley Do-Right, and Crusader Rabbit, passed away at the age of 90. So, with that being said, now actually I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. When I come back, I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. We do have one article we're going to go over. I'll do that in a moment. I've got to, as I said, I've got to go off camera here for a moment. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So now getting caught up on today's stuff. So today we do have one article we're going to go over from Bleeding Fool. We're going to look at this week's episode of Indie Comic Showcase. We'll be doing that. And of course, afterwards, we'll be doing the Russian wrap up, look back to last night's Dynamite, look ahead to tonight's Ring of Honor Honor Club taping. And then we'll wrap things up tonight with this day in each history. Today for the 23rd, and I will remember this time as we kind of had quite a bit going on there. So anyways, let's go ahead and get ready to get started here. So let me pull up the article here for that. And check a couple things here. All right. And again, a friendly reminder, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, let's get into this. Indie Comics Showcase number 309, Legends of Indie Comics and Words Only, Volume 2, article by Chris Braley, published yesterday. So, welcome back to another installment of Indie Comics Showcase, the weekly blog where we single boost a few truly independent comics that are currently crowdfunding their projects, crowdsourcing their funding in some way, or just completely self-publishing on their own. Every little bit of support for these creators matters, from a single dollar pledge to the $25 bundle. And of course, the higher tiers are usually fun too. Even if you can't back a campaign or buy a book, you can share or tweet about these projects to your friends and followers, or of course, just check out my coverage of it on Thursday nights when they do have the articles available. On the weeks they do have the articles available. On Indie Comics Showcase, we interview the creators, show off some art, and tell you how you can check out the project for yourself. Below, we have some outstanding crowdfunding campaigns this week for you to learn about, enjoy, and hopefully support by backing one or more of them. Thanks for checking these out and for being the best part of Indie Comics Showcase. Let's jump in. So, we have Legends of Indie Comics, Words Only, Volume 2. By Robert Jetschonek. Jetschonek. All right, so this is going to be an interesting one here. I think this is actually the only, I think this is one of the few times, I think it's one of the few times where I think they only have the one article here. Let me go find. So this is a Kickstarter campaign, of course. This might be the only all right, so let me see here. First off, let me go ahead and Alright, let me just go ahead and do the other one. Do it for the Rumble, from the Rumble side of it as well. So here's, of course, the link for those of you guys want to go check those out. There's the one link for it there. That's the YouTube link, and then there's the Rumble link. Oh, there's the link on Rumble for it. All right. So with that being said, now let's go ahead and take a look at this. So, Legends of Indie Comics, Words Only, Volume 2 by Robert Jeschonek. Let's see. The cover says here, Words Only, Volume 2. Prose epics of the greatest indie heroes, written by their genius creators. Plus brand new fiction by the legendary Howard Chaykin. All right, so Chris Braley. Your successful campaign for Legends of Indie Comics, Words Only Volume 2, wraps up today. Tell our readers what the book's about. Robert Jeschonek. This book features all new prose stories of classic indie comic characters written by their original creators. It includes characters like Nexus by Mike Barron and Star Slammers by Walter Simonson. The esteemed Garth Ennis and Howard Chaykin are also contributing stories, along with Colleen Doran, Joe Staton, and Mark Wheatley. We also have Lost Tales, an artwork by underground superstar Vaughn Baudet. Plus, there's a stretch goal for a special jam story that will bring many of these creators and their characters together in one incredible team up. Wow, that sounds interesting. Chris, where did the idea for this project come from, and why did you decide to self-publish? Robert, I envisioned this project years ago and always believed it was a fantastic idea, although it took a while to bring it to fruition. We crowdfunded Volume 1 last year, which featured stories by Mike Grail, Paul Chadwick, John Ostrander, and others. That campaign performed so well that I knew a follow-up was necessary. I chose to assemble and publish it myself because I strongly believe in indie publishing and the advantages it provides. After all, the book, named Legends of Indie Comics, should be indie published. Well, makes sense, right? It does make sense, doesn't it? Chris, who is this book best suited for? What kind of readers should pick it up? Robert, this book is aimed primarily at adult readers, especially those who love indie, alternative, and underground comics. Some stories contain strong language and mature themes, so it might not be suitable for younger readers. Chris, could you share about your style and creative process? How did you develop them? Robert, I am a US Today best-selling fiction author, so I'm familiar with the publishing world. I've written hundreds of stories, dozens of books, and numerous comic scripts, including for DC and Ahoy. I also contribute to Back Issue magazine. On the editing side, I've assembled several themed anthologies which have done quite well. Let's see. And again, another friendly reminder for everybody, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right. And with that, then getting back to the article here, then. Chris Braley, tell us about the creative team behind this volume. Robert, John K. Snyder III provided the cover illustration, and Ed Vick of Moo Press wrote the introduction. The full roster of authors includes Mike Barron, Nexus, Donna Barr, The Desert Peach, Bill Black, Femforce, Mark and Von Baudet, Cheech Wizard and Junkwaffle, Gary Carlson, Megaton, let's see, Howard Shakin, in parentheses here, and quotes, Shabos Goy, all of these are in parentheses, by the way, Colleen Doran, A Distant Soil, Garth Ennis, Jamie McKenzie, Stephen Grant, Twilight Man, Roberta Gregory, Bitchy Bitch. It's actually the name of a book. Okay. A little redundant there, but hey, whatever. James Artemis Owen, Starchild. David Quinn, Faust. Walter Simonson, Star Slummers. John K. Snyder III, Fashion in Action. Joe Staten, E-Man and Nova Kane. Jan Sturmad, Delgota, Ty Templeton, Stig's Inferno, Mark Verheiden, The American, Henry Vogel, Extraterrestrial Time Traveling Thieves, aka X Thieves, Mark Wheatley, Frankenstein Mobster, and Bill Willingham, Pantheon. So quite a mouthful there, to say the least. And of course, I encourage everybody, encourage both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. If you haven't already, you guys help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the question to the best of my ability. So, getting back to the article here. Chris, what is your production workflow like? How far along is the book? Robert, many authors have already submitted their stories. Others are still completing theirs. I plan to assemble the book after the Kickstarter campaign concludes, because the stretch goals we reach will determine if the book includes black and white illustrations and a special jam story that teams up multiple characters. We continue on with the article here. Chris, what have you learned from self-publishing crowdfunding? What have you learned from the self-publishing crowdfunding process? Robert, pre-launch preparation is even more crucial than I realized. Building a following before the campaign starts can make the difference between success and failure. Creating compelling stretch goals is also vital to spark backer interest. Creatively, it's reinforced how thrilling it is to work with such an incredibly talented team of creators or true legends? Chris Braley, what are your plans after this volume? Are more stories coming? Robert, I'm already planning Legends of Indie Comics Words Only Volume 3. I've recruited outstanding creators for what will be an even bigger and cooler volume than the first two. Volume 1 focused on indie comics from the 80s, 1980s. The 2 expanded to cover the 1960s through the 1990s. Volume 3 will bring us into the 21st century, which has been a boom time for indie creators, especially considering the fact of that people are looking for those alternatives to what we've been dealing with for the last 10 years or so. Some people would argue 5 to 10 years. Chris, any special features or perks included with this book or the crowdfunding campaign? Robert, we've already hit our first stretch goal, which adds a new story by Garth Ennis. Um, the next two stretch goals will ensure at least one black and white illustration accompanies every story, except one for specific reasons. The subsequent stretch goal will unlock a highly anticipated jam story starring many characters from the book, um, written by their creators. Um, that's the one I'm most excited about because it's going to be amazing. So basically, the idea is they're bringing a big team up story together. Is what he's saying there. Look at that book right. That's thick. That thing looks pretty thick right there. Is that a comic or is that a full on book? Chris, is there anything else you'd like to share with our readers? Robert, your support made Legends of Indie Comics Volume 1 a reality, and it's what will ensure Volume 2 succeeds as well. Please help spread the word. Anyone, anyone, and everyone who will listen. This project will only get better with their help. Uh, Chris, great. I encourage everyone to check out the campaign. The link is below. So there you go. So yeah, only one feature for this particular story tonight. Things to be slowing down recently within the last year here or so. That's it for this installment. If you're a creator ramping up your own campaign or have a comic available for purchase online and you want to be featured in our weekly column, click here. So we can hopefully help you get more eyes on your crowdfunding comic project. Until next time, supporting the comics. Alrighty then. Here we go. Let's see where we're at on time here. Oh, yeah, 36. So I guess it would be a good time now, especially with what we had to do earlier. I guess I'm going to go ahead and just move right into the this this day in each or not this day, but actually the wrestling wrap up. Kind of get caught up on a few items here. Um, all right, so let me just go ahead and yeah. All right, so we're now going to go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up. We're going to look back at last night's AW Dynamite and look ahead to tonight's Ring of Honor Club. The only reason I haven't said anything about TNA because TNA tonight they're just kind of still doing kind of like stuff from Bound for Glory. There's not really anything like live going on right now. Most of the story progression in TNA is happening through NXT right now. So, anyways, looking back to last night's Dynamite, AEW Dynamite, Last night's Dynamite came from the Boeing Center at Tech Point in San Antonio, Texas, with, of course, Bryan Danielson, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The night opened up with the World Trios title match, in which the Ops, Powerhouse Hobbs, Samoa Joe, and Katsuyori Shibata retained the titles over the Hurt Syndicate of Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MVP. In a four-way tag team match, Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter defeated the top gods of Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, and the Sisters of Sin, Sky Blue and Julia Hart, of course, representing the Triangle of Madness. As this was kind of a precursor into the upcoming tournament for the AEW Women's World Tag Titles. Kyle O'Reilly defeated Jon Moxley in a one-on-one match by DQ. And then following that match, in a match that was previously announced, a six-man tag match, saw the conglomeration duo of Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy teaming up with Paragon's Roderick Strong to defeat the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta. And then in the main event, saw Kazuchika Okada retain the Unified title over Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito. So that's all we got for the AEW stuff there. So now let's look ahead to tonight's Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Ring of Honor on Honor Club, which is taking place from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. On the show, scheduled for the show tonight include Angelico of the Spanish Announce Project, taking on Máscara Dorada, who, of course, will have Alex Abrahantes in his corner. In a six-man tag match, you have Tommy Billington, Jay Lethal, and Adam Priest all teaming up to take on the Dark Order's Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. In a mixed six-person tag match, you have Bryce Cannon and Leroy Shogun and Dream Girl Ellie teaming up to take on the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson with Isla Dawn. In a singles match, Griff Garrison of the Frat House with, of course, Cole Carter, Jack Jameson, and Brett Warner takes on Commander with Alex Abrahantes in his corner. In a Pure Rules match, as they continue to work their way towards a women's Pure Rules tournament, Deonna Purrazzo will be taking on Angelica Risk. And in the main event, we'll see in a tag team match, Alex Windsor teaming with Yuka Sakazaki to take on Aaliyah James and Billy Starks. So, of course, we'll give you the results of that show tomorrow, as well as look ahead to tomorrow night's SmackDown, as people are, as WWE is building towards Saturday night's main event, already announced for next Saturday night's main event, of course. Both world titles will be on the line, as Cody Rhodes will be defending the WWE Undisputed title against Drew McIntyre, while to fill the vacancy for the WWE World Heavyweight title, as that was vacated by Seth Rollins upon his injury, CM Punk will be taking on Jey Uso, who won the Battle Royal this past Monday night, much to many online fans, anyways, chagrin. The thing is, the tricky thing here about the whole Jey Uso situation, because a lot of fans online just don't feel that it's his time, but yet he still is very popular at the arena. So to the live crowd, he's still very popular. Hey there, Fishozo. Thanks for popping in. Hope you're doing well. If you haven't already, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. What people have been some people are saying, though, it's probably because a lot of people online wanted to see LA Knight. They feel that it's LA Knight's time to finally shine. As he's very popular too. But I think at this point in where they're at right now with the development and stuff like that, I think they feel like it's been reported that some people are speculating that Jey Uso can actually take a pinfall loss and not really lose much momentum, whereas I think it would hurt. They feel it would hurt LA Knight. I think WWE is planning maybe sometime next year, early part of next year, maybe putting the world title on LA Knight. But I guess we'll just wait and see how all that kind of plays out. Also, I did kind of forget to do this before we moved on to the wrestling. But so here are the links to the one book that we did feature in the article that were featured in the article tonight. Legends of Indie Comics, Words Only, Volume 2 by Robert Jenner. Check it's a Kickstarter campaign. If you guys want to go check that out. There's of course, that's on YouTube, and then I also put the link on Rumble if you guys are interested. Go check that out. All right, so I think we pretty much have caught up on everything through the wrestling wrap up. So now, with that being said, let's see. Now we're at the 43-minute mark. I think I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and do the This Day in Each History segment for tonight. You guys know I had to do one last night at the beginning of the show because I kind of forgot to do it last night. So that's why we're doing two and one here. So today is Thursday, July the 23rd, 2025. So let's take a look back at this day in each history. So, let's see. 1996, 1995, 2020, and 2005. All right, so first off, we're going to head back 30 years ago. As on this date, 30 years ago today, in 1995, WCW held its Go Home Monday Nitro before that year's Halloween Havoc. The Go Home Monday Nitro before that year's Halloween Havoc from the Von Braun Civic Center in Huntsville, Alabama. The main event on the show saw Lex Luger and Sting defeat Harlem Heat, Booker Ray and Stevie Ray, Sister Sherry in their corner. Another tag team match, Eddie Guerrero and Mr. JL, Alex Wright in their corner, defeated Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko in 10 minutes. And then Randy Savage defeated Kurosawa in 8 minutes. So that was what we had for the Go Home Nitro before. Hello. Hello there. Can't even read the name there. I guess Iron Man 833, I guess is the name there. Well, thanks for dropping in to check things out. Anyways, as we get ready to move on to the next piece of niche history here. Okay. We're gonna now move ahead to 1996, 29 years ago today, on this date in 1996. The fifth issue of Blade of the Immortal from Dark Horse's Dark Horse manga imprint went on sale on this date back in 1996. It sold for $2.95 for 32 pages. So the fifth issue of Blade of the Immortal from Dark Horse's Dark Horse manga imprint went on sale on this date back in 1996, 29 years ago today. All right, so now moving on to the next piece in niche history as we move ahead to the year 2005. On this date in the year 2005, as soon as I find that. On this date in the year 2005, 2005, Artland's Mushishi premiered on Japanese television on Fuji TV and BS Fuji on this date back in 2005. Kind of a very surreal type anime, which you had the main character going around. Let's see. Mushishi is set in an imaginary time between Edo and Meiji period, featuring some 19th century technology, but with Japan still as closed country. The story features ubiquitous creatures called mushi that often display what appear as supernatural powers. It is implied that there are many more primitive life forms than normal living things, such as animals, plants, fungi, bacteria, and mushi is the most primitive of all. So there you go with that. So now, moving on to the year 2020, 5 years ago today. I believe that's the vomitorium right there. Mushishi is a great, yeah. It's very interesting to watch. Quite surreal. And I guess now I of course have this now on my channel, just like what's been going on Rex's channel. Now they're not showing the names. Now they're just doing the @ things. I don't know why they even did that. But maybe I'll see if I can reset that in the. There's any way to reach. But anyways, with that being said, do have one more piece of niche. We move ahead to the year 2020, 5 years ago today, on this date, 5 years ago today, in the year 2020. On this date in the year 2020, the Frozen short, Once Upon a Snowman, premiered on Disney Plus, which follows Olaf's origin story during the first film. So the Frozen short, Once Upon a Snowman, premiered on Disney Plus on this date 5 years ago. Alrighty then. So with that being said, let's see. We still have okay. We're still doing fine on time here from what I wanted. All right. So with that being said, I thank everybody for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. Also, don't forget this Sunday, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be looking, as we're, of course, be starting our July coverage of 1940. Books that went on sale in July. We'll be looking at the books that came out from DC, focusing in on, of course, Batman #2, which is the first time the Joker and Catwoman actually crossed paths in a DC book. Also, of course, we'll also introduce everybody to Jimmy Martin and the Minutemen of America from Our Man, and Irene Miller, who was, of course, Alan Scott's first romantic interest in DC. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. As always, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and hopefully you guys can also comment. As always, I always love to get your feedback. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.